The restaurant is losing money. We need to shut it down, my brother said, asking me to familia sign over my share. I almost believed him. Then the accountant I secretly hired showed me the real books, $340,000 in profit last year alone. All funneled to his wife's boutique. I walked into the next family meeting with the forensic auditor. My mother fainted. My brother Marcus said, sliding papers across the table toward me with the practiced sympathy of someone who'd rehearsed this moment. I know it's hard to accept, but the numbers don't lie. Sign over your share, let me handle the liquidation, and at least you'll walk away with something instead of nothing. His wife Patricia nodded solemnly beside him, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. As if the failure of our father's life's work genuinely pained her. But why did I hesitate instead of signing in? Immediately, and why, 3 weeks later did I walk into our family meeting with a forensic auditor whose findings made my mother collapse in her chair? I need you to explain these discrepancies, I said, setting the auditor's report on the table. Marcus glanced at the document, then at Patricia, then back at me, with an expression that shifted from confusion to recognition to something approaching panic. What discrepancies? The restaurant is failing. The restaurant made $340,000 in profit last year alone. I have the real books now, Marcus. Not the version you showed me, the version that shows exactly where that money went. I pointed to Patricia straight into her boutique. For 3 years, over $800,000 in total. My mother's face went white. Then she fainted, sliding out of her chair before anyone could catch her. The truth had been worth the wait, but the family would never recover from it. My father had built more Eddies over 40 years. Starting as a small Italian restaurant and a strip mall, it had grown into a local institution, the place where families celebrated the anniversaries, where couples got engaged, where generations returned to remember the meals that had marked their most important moments. Dad had died 18 months ago, leaving the restaurant to Marcus and me in equal shares. Marcus had been managing the day-to-day operations for years, while I lived 3 states away building my career as a corporate attorney. The arrangement had seemed natural. He was on site, knew the staff, understood the business. I'd trusted him completely. When he called 6 weeks ago claiming the restaurant was hemorrhaging money, I believed every word. The pandemic hit us hard. We never fully recovered. Costs are up, revenues are down, and we're bleeding cash every month. His voice had been heavy with apparent grief. I've been trying to keep it going for Dad's memory, but I can't keep covering the losses from my own pocket. How bad is it? We'll be bankrupt in 6 months if we don't close now, but if you sign over your share, I can sell the building, the equipment, the liquor license. Maybe salvage $200,000 for each of us instead of nothing. The numbers he'd shown me supported his story. Monthly statements showing consistent losses. Expense reports documenting rising costs. A trajectory that painted a picture of a business in terminal decline. I'd almost signed. I'd had the pen in my hand. What stopped me was a memory of my father. Never sign anything without understanding it completely. He told me when I started law school. Especially when family is involved. Blood doesn't make people honest, it just makes betrayal hurt more. I'd set down the pen and asked for more time to review the documents. Marcus had been frustrated but hadn't pushed. Probably because pushing would have seemed suspicious. That night, I'd read every page he provided. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't identify what. The statements looked professional. The trajectory was plausible. The story was believable. Too believable. Maybe. Too complete. Too convenient. I'd called a forensic accountant the next morning. Sandra Okonkwo specialized in family business fraud. Unfortunately, this is common. She told me during our initial consultation. One sibling manages the business. The other trusts them implicitly, and money disappears through methods that wouldn't survive professional scrutiny. You think my brother is stealing from the restaurant? I think the documents he showed you are inconsistent with publicly available information about your father's best business. Property tax records suggest the restaurant's assessed value has increased, not decreased. Health inspection reports show consistent high ratings and busy service observations. Social media reviews describe packed weekend crowds. But the financial statements were probably created specifically to convince you to sign away your ownership. The question is what the real financial statements show. Getting the real books took 3 weeks. Sandra had subpoenaed bank records, credit card processing statements, and supplier invoices. She'd interviewed former employees, carefully, without alerting Marcus, about customer volume and business operations. She deconstructed a picture of Moretti's financial reality that bore no resemblance to what my brother had shown me. The restaurant is thriving, she concluded, spreading her findings across my dining room table. Year-over-year growth. Profit margins well above industry average. A customer base that's expanded since your father's death because, according to former staff, Marcus invested in marketing and renovations. Then why is he claiming it's failing? Because he's been stealing the profits. Sandra pulled out a diagram showing money flows. Every month, substantial amounts are transferred from the restaurant's operating account to a series of shell companies. Those companies pay invoices to your sister-in-law's boutique, Patricia's Designs. What invoices? What could a boutique possibly sell to a restaurant? Consulting services, interior design, marketing materials. The invoices are vague enough to seem plausible but specific enough to justify large payments. Sandra paused. Over the past 3 years, approximately $840,000 has been funneled from Moretti's to Patricia's boutique through this mechanism. $840,000. Your brother has been systematically looting the business your father built, and now he wants you to sign over your share so he can either continue the theft or sell the whole thing. In pocket proceeds he's not entitled to. The family meeting was scheduled for Sunday afternoon. Marcus had arranged it to finalize the closure of the restaurant. He'd invited our mother, our aunt and uncle, several cousins, anyone who might pressure me into signing if I showed signs of hesitation. He'd expected me to arrive alone and overwhelmed. I arrived with Sandra Okonkwo and 3 bankers' boxes of documentation. What is this? Marcus asked, as I set the boxes on the table. A forensic audit of Moretti's financial records. The real ones, not the version you fabricated to convince me the restaurant was failing. The room went silent. I don't know what you're talking about. You've been stealing from our father's business for at least 3 years. You've funneled over $800,000 to Patricia's boutique through fake invoices and shell companies. You've been lying to me, to Mom, to everyone in this room. That's ridiculous. The restaurant is losing money. The restaurant made $340,000 in profit last year alone. I opened the first box and pulled out the bank statement Sandra had obtained. I have the real numbers, Marcus. Every transfer. Every fake invoice. Every dollar you diverted to your wife's business while telling us Dad's legacy was dying. My mother looked between Marcus and me, confusion giving way to horror. Marcus? Is this true? He didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. That was when she fainted. The aftermath of the revelation was chaos and confrontation. Uncle Richard helped revive my mother, while Aunt Maria demanded explanations. Patricia attempted to leave, claiming she had nothing to do with financial decisions, but Sandra blocked her path with documentation showing she'd signed every fake invoice. You're both complicit, Sandra said flatly. The shell companies are registered in both your names. The transfers required both your signatures. This was a coordinated scheme, not one person's mistake. Marcus finally dropped the pretense. The restaurant should have been mine entirely, he said, his voice bitter. I'm the one who worked there for 20 years. I'm the one who managed it after Dad got sick. You moved away, built your career, barely visited, and you got half of everything. That's what Dad wanted. Equal shares. Dad was sentimental. He couldn't see that you didn't deserve equal shares. You contributed nothing while I gave my life to that business. So you decided to steal my share instead of asking for a buyout? Instead of being honest about what you felt you deserved, would you have given me more? Would anyone? You'd all have told me to accept what Dad decided. Marcus stood, facing me directly. I earned that money. Every dollar I took, I earned 3 years of work you never did. You earned the right to steal $840,000, and then try to trick me into signing away my ownership. I earned the right to be compensated for my actual contribution, not split. Everything with a sister who showed up twice a year for holidays. The family split into factions immediately. Our mother, once revived, retreated into denial. There must be some misunderstanding. Marcus wouldn't steal from his own family. He did steal, Mom. I have documentation. You're misinterpreting things. Numbers can be confusing. Let me talk to Marcus privately. There's nothing to misinterpret. He created fake invoices, set up shell companies, and transferred $840,000 to his wife's boutique while telling us the restaurant was failing. That's not a misunderstanding. That's fraud. Uncle Richard and Aunt Maria sided with me, recognizing the evidence is undeniable. Several cousins remained neutral, uncomfortable with family conflict. Patricia's parents, who had also been invited, presumably to add pressure for my signature, left in embarrassed silence. Marcus and Patricia left together, refusing to answer further questions. Their exit a confirmation of everything I'd accused them of. The legal proceedings took 8 months. I filed civil suits for breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, and conversion of assets. Sandra S. documentation was comprehensive enough that Marcus S. attorneys advised him to settle rather than risk a jury trial. The settlement required Marcus to transfer his entire share of more eddies to me, repay $400,000 of the stolen funds over 5 years, resign from any involvement with the restaurant, accept a restraining order preventing him from entering the premises. Patricia's boutique was forced into bankruptcy when the court determined it had received stolen funds. The equipment and inventory were sold, with proceeds applied to the restitution Marcus owed. The criminal referral I filed with the district attorney resulted in charges for fraud and embezzlement. Marcus pleaded to reduce charges, receiving 3 years of probation and community service. Patricia received probation for her role in creating false invoices. They avoided prison. They didn't avoid consequences. My mother's response to the legal proceedings was heartbreaking. "You're destroying your brother," she told me during one painful conversation. "Whatever he did, he's still family. You should have handled this privately." Privately? He stole over $800,000 and tried to trick me into signing away my inheritance. What private resolution would have been appropriate? Forgiveness, understanding, finding a way to move forward together. He committed crimes, Mom. He lied to my face for months. He was going to steal Dad's entire legacy and leave me with nothing while convincing everyone I'd made a free choice. But the courts, the publicity, the shame, our family name is ruined. Marcus ruined it when he decided to steal. I'm just refusing to be his victim. She couldn't accept it. In her worldview, family loyalty trumped everything, including justice, including truth, including protecting yourself from relatives who would destroy you without hesitation. We stopped speaking for nearly a year after the settlement was finalized. Taking over more eddies was both healing and overwhelming. I hired a general manager to handle day-to-day operations, someone Marcus hadn't selected, someone with no connection to the theft. I reviewed every financial document personally for the first 6 months, establishing controls that would prevent future embezzlement. The staff, most of whom had suspected something was wrong without being able to prove it, welcomed the change in leadership. Several longtime employees shared observations about Marcus's spending, the new car, the house renovation, the lifestyle that exceeded what a restaurant manager should have been able to afford. "We knew something wasn't right," one veteran server told me. "But he was the boss. What could we say? You could have called me. We didn't know you. Marcus always said you weren't interested in the restaurant, that you'd moved on." Another lie, designed to isolate me from information that might have revealed the truth earlier. The restaurant's genuine success became apparent once I had access to accurate information. Without Marcus's theft draining profits, more eddies generated enough income to fund expansion. I opened a second location 2 years after taking control, then a third. The brand my father had built over 40 years grew into something larger, a small restaurant group with his name on every door. I named the conference room in our new corporate office after him, the Antonio Moretti Room. His photograph hung on every restaurant wall, a reminder of who had started what we were continuing. The expansion wasn't revenge, it was honoring his legacy in a way Marcus's theft had almost prevented. Marcus reached out 3 years after the settlement. His email was brief, carefully worded, probably reviewed by an attorney before sending. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'd like to explain my perspective and, if possible, find some way to move forward. Mom is getting older. She wants her children to be able to be in the same room. For her sake, if not for ours, could we talk?" I considered the request for a week before responding. You stole $840,000 from our father's business. You created fake documents to convince me the restaurant was failing. You tried to manipulate me into signing away my inheritance. And your explanation, when confronted, was that you deserved it because you worked harder. I don't need your perspective. I have 8 months of court records explaining exactly what you did and why. What I needed from you was honesty, and you chose theft and manipulation instead. For Mom's sake, I can be civil at family gatherings. But we're not going to be close again. Trust, once destroyed this completely, doesn't rebuild. He didn't respond. My mother eventually accepted the new reality. Not happily, she still wished I'd handled everything privately. Still believed family unity mattered more than justice. But she accepted that her children's relationship was permanently damaged, that holidays would be awkward, that her dreams of a close-knit family had shattered against the rocks of her son's choices. I blame myself sometimes, she admitted during one conversation. Maybe I favored Marcus too much. Made him feel entitled. You didn't make him steal, Mom. That was his choice. But I should have seen it. Should have noticed the signs. You trusted your son. That's not a character flaw. His violation of that trust is the problem, not the trust itself. She nodded, though I wasn't sure she fully accepted it. Mothers often struggle to see their children's genuine capacity for harm. Moretti's continues to thrive. 5 locations now, with a 6th opening next year. A catering division. A line of branded products, sauces, pasta, the signature items my father developed over 40 years of cooking. I think about him often when I walk through the restaurants. What he would think of the expansion. Whether he would approve of how I've handled the business, the family, the betrayal. I believe he would be proud, not just of the business success, but of my refusal to be victimized by someone who counted on my trust to enable his theft. Never sign anything without understanding it completely, especially when family is involved. He'd known. Somehow he'd known that blood didn't guarantee honesty. That family could hurt you more deeply than strangers because you expected better. The pen I almost used to sign away my inheritance sits in a display case in my office. It's just a reminder of how close I came to losing everything, not because I wasn't smart enough to understand the fraud, but because I trusted too easily. Because family seemed like it should mean something. Because I wanted to believe my brother wouldn't steal from me. The 3 weeks between almost signing and hiring Sandra Okonkwo were the most important weeks of my life. That hesitation, that small voice saying something was wrong, saved me from a betrayal that would have been complete. Marcus had planned everything perfectly. The fake documents, the emotional appeals, the family pressure, the timing designed to prevent careful review. He'd counted on my trust, my busy schedule, my distance from the business. He hadn't counted on me remembering our father's advice. He told me the restaurant was failing. He showed me statements proving losses, projections showing bankruptcy, numbers that painted a picture of inevitable collapse. He asked me to sign over my share so he could salvage what remained. I almost believed him. I had the pen in my hand. But something felt wrong. Too convenient, too complete, too eager. The forensic auditor found $840,000 in stolen profits, funneled to his wife's boutique through fake invoices and shell companies. When I walked into that family meeting with the real numbers, my mother fainted. My brother finally admitted the truth. He thought he deserved it all. Now I own the restaurant entirely. 5 locations and growing. My father's name on every door. And my brother has a criminal record, a failed marriage, and a sister who will never trust him again. He asked me to sign. I chose to investigate instead. That choice was worth $840,000 and my father's legacy.